Hello and welcome to Hastings Community Television. I'm Superintendent Tim Collins, and with me today is board member Dan Cater, and not board member for much longer because we're taping this in October, and Dan has made the choice after 12 years.
Yep.
12 years to not run again. Why would you not want to run again after 12 years? But, seriously, 12 years of dedication and commitment, and not only serving on the Hastings School Board, but also serving on the 917 School Board as our representative, which means another meeting or two every month. Are you sure your marriage is gonna?
Yeah, I know. I'll be home so much more. I think that maybe my wife Karen will start a new campaign for me or something.
Yeah, I think that maybe within a year or two you'll be re-upping to save your marriage, because you are gone quite a bit. You're gone at least 4 nights out of the month, and then some. We have a meeting coming up Monday morning. You give to that as well. So first of all, thank you for 12 years of dedication and commitment. And I think that one of the main reasons that I asked Dan, we've been having different individuals sit with me as we talk about the upcoming bond and levy. I think that Dan is a great person to have here because you're not running for school board anymore.
No.
You could take a parting shot and say, I don't believe in this.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing for you to come on the show today and say, which I know is going to be your support for both the bond and the levy, because the levy is not going to help you anymore. You're going to be gone as a board member. You don't have children in school anymore.
My youngest graduated in, 2015.
2015, and so this is not self-serving. So what comes from you today is you tell it as it is. And you also know that you have to, you work at Dakota County, and there's quite a few employees at Dakota County, and you're going to be asking them to raise their taxes for the levy and also support the bond, and then also your neighbors as well, that you, even though you're not on the board, you still have to live around them. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to start out with the bond again, talking just a little bit about it, but then I want to focus on the operating levy. We do have 2 questions that are going to be on the ballot. One is to reinvest $49.5 million in a variety of projects, and on your screen right now, you can see what we've gone through before as the core 9 that make up that $49.5 million. And you can go to our Hastings website, and there's an icon there called Project List, and you can see all of the detailed information about the projects, all the way from the drinking fountains to the HVAC to the carpet to the technology, et cetera. But when I look at this first 9, and then Dan, I'm going to ask you to share just a little bit. Really the top 4 drive probably 85% of the bond, the middle school HVAC being around $28.5 million, the district-wide roofs being around $9 million, the high school parking lot, other parking lots, etc. That's why we went for the bond in 2017. That's what's really driving this. We couldn't wait till 2018 with leakage on our roof. We couldn't wait till 2018 or 2019 with our HVAC at our middle school. We're just knocking, there's not wood here, but we're knocking on wood to get through this year at our middle school site with our boiler system. So those really drive it. And then the other items, I'm going to talk about Todd Field a little bit more than I've talked about in the past, and Dan, I'll let you hop in on that later on. But that's when I look at this list, that's what it says to me. Dan, when you look at the list as a board member, what does it say to you?
Well, the roof issue in particular has been driving me crazy for years. I've wanted to come and fix the roof, especially here at the high school. We got this great high school, nice investment in it, and it looks great. It leaves a positive impression when people come into our high school. And then we have garbage cans sitting around in the hallway collecting water from the roofs. And so definitely all these projects really need to be done. To me, it's really about taking care of our investment in these schools, and all these facilities. And so you wouldn't want to, it's just like at your house. You got to take care of your investment in your home. We have to take care of our investment in our schools.
You know, and that's what really drove the school board on their decision making. That's what drove the 20-member facility task force. That's what drove me as superintendent saying, we can't be bashful about asking, protecting our investment. And you mentioned the high school. There are lots of people in the community that never get to come into the high school, or for whatever reason, they don't have a reason to come to the high school. You and I are here. We get to see how beautiful it is, but we get to see some of the issues that need reinvestment. A lot of the public drives by from the curbside, and it still looks beautiful to them. And so that's why we're on the show, to let you know there are some issues that needs to be addressed, and we're asking for your support in it. And I do want to talk about number 9, Todd Field. We've been doing some phone calling about the bond issue, and we've been hearing some comments from some citizens concerned about, you know, I'd like to vote for it. I believe in everything, but I don't believe in the synthetic turf at Todd Field. And I think that when we worked as a board through the list, not all of us believed in everything 100%. And the facility task force, you get 20 people, you get 20 different opinions on, well, I didn't really want this one necessarily, but as a package of what we need to do, we came to consensus 7-0. The community came to consensus 7-0. And I think, Dan, Todd Field, we've been talking about this as a school board and superintendent for how many years now?
Well, the whole time I've been on, so that's 12 years that we've been talking about this.
And tell the people what we've been talking about over those 12 years. What has come up every 2 to 3 years?
Well, I mean, it's really everything is coming up every 2 or 3 years. The concession stands, that bathroom is horrible, and the field itself. We've had all kinds of problems with different, like, weird grass diseases, and sometimes that field will actually get to be the point where it's not really safe because it's not holding its root system. And so we could, you know, since most of the calls are about the actual surface itself, I mean, we would need to reinvest in that surface regardless. So it just can't stay the same as it is now. And so you either put a lot of money in and stay grass, or you can put more money in, save on maintenance, and then also have all kinds of use of Todd Field. You know, I was in different sports, you know, growing up here in Hastings too, and the only thing I got to play on Todd Field was my saxophone. I was kind of glad for that opportunity. But I'd like to have, you know, the kids of Hastings have more opportunity because it's such a nice historic facility. And that's the other thing that's come up over and over again is because of the history of Todd Field, we really want to make sure that we take good care of it. It's at the intersection of 2 major highways. I mean, everyone driving through, it's probably the most visible statement about our school system is actually Todd Field when you consider its location.
Well, and I think, Dan, when we speak about Todd Field, 12 years ago and 10 years ago, you and I were not in favor of synthetic turf.
No, I certainly was not. I was probably a vocal opponent to synthetic turf. I am definitely a grass guy. Primarily, if I could just have my way 100%, maybe it'd be grass, and we'd be spending a whole lot of money and having not that many events there. But then when you look at, you know, I talked to a soccer player because I think soccer players are probably the most favorable towards grass than the other synthetic fields. And I could tell they're kind of looking forward to a synthetic turf field there because they were saying they'd much rather play on a synthetic turf field than a grass field that wasn't maintained that well. And they're trying to be nice and, you know, and we do try to maintain the grass field. But I do think that and you put that together with being able to play there in general. I can't remember what they were saying the difference in number events would be. If you recall, it was like we have so many events there now. And
it's staggering. It's when we sat in committees, we were informed that right now it's about 40 events a year that are held at Todd Field. And with the synthetic turf, we're looking at 180 to 200 events. And no longer will it be just used for high school events. It could be used for 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. And I think that's what really, we're going to have the cost of redoing the lights regardless. Mm-hmm. We're going to have the cost of redoing the drainage. It doesn't drain at all.
Right.
We're going to have the cost of doing the parking lot. We're going to have to do, have you ever been in the bathrooms? Have you?
As seldom as I possibly can. Yeah,
Okay.
I've been in there.
I haven't been in the bathrooms in 10 years, and there's a reason why.
Yeah.
I go to the bathroom before I go to a football game at Todd Field. But so I think.
So I have pride in the community, and I got these rivalries from working at the county, and someone comes down, and I'm not proud of those concession stands or the adjoining bathroom is what the real problem is. So yeah, we really should do something there.
But I think without a doubt, the board came down to, if we're going to have to spend close to $1.5 to $2 million to do those other things that we mentioned, the parking lot has been brought up many years too, and as you and I have our parents getting older and we see their struggle to walk at times, we understand that walking on a gravel parking lot can be difficult, and it's a safety issue. And from the lighting to the concession stands to the bathrooms to the drainage issue to a lift station for the bathrooms to get the sewage out of the bowl. When we looked at all those items, it still came down to, if we're going to spend that much money, let's go the extra $600,000 for the synthetic turf so that it gets to be used by the community all the time. And I think that's in a nutshell, right?
Yes, and if the community or that task force convinced me of that, I really do think if people, if they're opposed to it right now, if they would look at it, they would
walk down on it.
Yep, they would become a believer.
Yeah, if you went down and walked on the field, and the argument to that is we'll put in a nice grass field. Well, a nice grass field with drainage is going to be about $800,000.
Right.
And then in the end, we get to use it 40 times out of the year, and that's where we came down to questioning, well, does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't even think it was that many times during the year. But
yeah,
was it?
40 times if the weather is perfect.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm sorry if lacrosse doesn't beat it up. I'm just sorry.
Right. Yep.
I'm not burning on lacrosse. Again, we're going to finish with the bond. We're going to get to the second question, which is the operating levy. But the zero tax impact, I just want to share again, and I'm not even going to have you talk on this, but we wanted to make sure that the bond was approved. So we went with a dollar amount and we structured it to not be paying the interest for the first 3 years. And when the high school gets paid for, tax dollars then will get shifted to pay for this reinvestment. And, I think that due to the fact that we needed the high school roof fixed, that we needed the HVAC fixed, we didn't go for $52 million where we'd say, hey, it's going to raise your taxes a little bit. We went with $49.5 million because we can say your taxes that you're paying for the school district on this issue are going to remain the same.
Yeah, well, I was on both the finance committee and the facilities committee, so I was part of that discussion. And yeah, I can say that the board members on that committee and the board in general, they don't want to yo-yo people's taxes. They don't want to say, well, you're going to get a slight tax cut for the next 2 years, but don't enjoy it too much because then we're going to take it away 2 years later. And so it's best just if we can keep things on kind of an even spread every year. I think that's probably the best way of going about it. And so, yeah, to me, I'm very comfortable with this being the best course of action.
Now, the next issue, the operating levy question, is going to raise taxes. We do have an icon. You can put in your value of your home, value of your property. It would tell you what dollar that amount would be per month, per year. We use a $250,000 home, and we're going to get into that a little bit later about the operating levy. Our operating levy was going to be due in 2019. That's when the levy was going to come up for the next vote. And we said, as long as we're talking about the bond and the fact that we continue to have declining enrollment and we're starting to see our savings account go down, we need to bring in some more money. And the declining enrollment, as you know, Dan, let's see, every year, how lucky you. You've been a board member for 12 years of decline.
Been riding the storm.
As superintendent, I can tell you the toughest time to lead is during decline, and not when there's an incline in student, because that means there's a decline in revenue. And Dan's made some of those tough decisions. You've been a part of it. You've been a part of closing Cooper Elementary, correct?
Yep.
You've been a part of closing Tilden.
Yes. I don't have my name on any plaques. You go into all the, you can, who was on the board in 2001? You got all these, nope, there's no plaques with Dan Cater on them.
But we were fortunate as a board. The community supported 2 operating levies,
Yes.
which has helped us build a savings account. And now as our savings account is starting to go down because of the continued decline in enrollment, decline in revenue, that's the core reason why we're out asking to revoke it and renew it for an additional $300 per student. And the other thing that people just say to me, I just don't believe it, Tim. The graph that's on the screen right now, these are the dollars that come into the school district each year from the operating levy. And it's what we've currently have in place, and you can see by looking at it that in 2010, thank you very much, community, we're bringing $7.5 million from the community to operate our schools. Now, we also get money from the state, and then we get a very small amount from the federal government, typically for our food service program and a little bit for special ed from the federal government and title. So these are our local dollars, and you can see that they've even declined. In 2016, we were getting less locally from our community, and even as we project out to 2021, it's really just simply flatlined because of our declining enrollment. So basically, we're trying to survive then off of what the state gives us, and let's just say the state hasn't always been generous. When you look at this, what does this mean to you?
Well, it means that this is going to be the way we fund schools, is what it means. I mean, almost everyone is going to, anyone in declining enrollment is going to be more and more dependent on passing operating levies. Otherwise, it's, I don't know, it means a lot of difficult times and tough decisions. To be honest, probably, I don't want to say it's a factor in myself not running, but I will say that one of the scariest things when you're running for school board is when you're running at the same time as an operating levy question or renewal, because the whole time you're running, you're going, oh my, what if I get on and this doesn't pass? I mean, having it fail and then not getting on is not a problem because you're not having to make all those difficult decisions. But you know, there's going to be difficult decisions even if this does pass. So this does not erase that, but it'll at least make it, hopefully, it'll make it something that can be managed.
And that's definitely one of the tough parts about this operating levy. It's going to help minimize our cuts. We're still going to have to be making cuts year after year as we continue to, I hate to use the word right size because there is no right size for a kindergarten class. There is no right size for an AP calculus class, but it's trying to reduce your budget as you're having less enrollment coming in. But unfortunately, we can't go to the community and say, yes, by passing this operating levy, we're going to add 10 more teachers. Basically, by this operating levy, it's going to allow the board to continue to make strategic reductions and try to minimize them along the way. I think the next thing up on the screen just validates what the previous graph showed, that if over 10 years the money coming in from the community is flatlined, then what should that mean for your property taxes as well? And we've shown this graph repeatedly, and I challenge anyone to just go look at theirs if they believe that the school district taxes, now we know there's school, and we love county taxes because you have a job because of it, and city taxes, they're all needed, but the school district taxes have not gone up over the last decade. You know, they've gone up a little, and I think on a $200,000 home when it's gone up about $1.80 a month, and on a $270,000 home when it's gone up, you know, $50 over the year or $4 a month, you know, that's minimal. And you know, so we're very fortunate that the community has given very generously, but we in the last 10 years have not asked for an increase in these areas as a school board.
Right.
I think enough said on that one. Dan, the next one, we keep using a $250,000 home, and this is for you where you have to go to your neighbors and say, yes, I am asking you to increase the taxes on your home. This levy will increase your taxes, the bond won't. And on a $250,000 home, it's about $1,050 a month. So what would you say to your neighbors on this? Because I'm sure there's been a few garage meetings.
Oh, sure. I mean, you know, gets back to, I always say, strong school, strong community. And so if you're like myself and you have no kids in the school system, you're not on school board, kind of what do you care? Well, you should care a lot because you want to protect the investment in your home. You want to live in a thriving community. You don't want to live in a dying community. And more, people are kind of shopping school districts as they determine where they're going to live, because the Twin Cities kind of metro suburban area is becoming kind of almost one community in a way. And so there's people shopping, well, should I buy that house in Rosemont or should I buy it in Hastings? I think that you want, and the other part of it is you want what's best for the kids of your community as well. And so that's been, what's been great about living in Hastings, grew up in Hastings, chose to raise my kids in Hastings, is it is a community that supports each other, and the surrounding townships as well, so I've got roots out in the New Trier area, and we consider ourselves one community. We kind of define the community per the school district, and so that's really nice here. It's unique to here, and so I think that we want to keep the community strong. So whether you have children in the schools or not, I definitely would tell my neighbors to vote yes. It'll be worth it. Protect your investment in your own property. Make sure that your property values, you certainly don't want them declining. And so that is what I'm telling people. It's a lot of garage talk. So.
Absolutely, and again, for everybody comes from different financial circumstances, whether it be the value of their home or the current status of their job. And I know if somebody's lost a job, I don't want to be minimizing $10.56 per month because that is a lot to them. But again, go to the calculator on our website and you can see what the financial impact will be for each of you. Again, I just want to show that there will be 2 questions on the ballot. One is for the bond, one is for the levy. Question number 1, even though we're basically asking people to keep their taxes the same, by law it has to state that by voting yes on this, you're increasing your taxes, because basically what would have happened is when the high school was paid for in 2021, your taxes would have gone down, so the state says they're going up. We talk about it as they're staying, as you said earlier, consistent.
Yeah.
Consistent giving. You don't want to yo-yo people's taxes. Right. You want to keep that consistency and with hopes that you're getting back stability from your school system as well. So we talked about this in other years, that even though it's something that we're saying taxes aren't going to be going up, we then have to turn around and put it on the ballot and say that they are.
Yep.
Any questions? We have another public meeting on October 25th, both at the middle school at 5 o'clock. I do just a 10-minute presentation. We really open it up to questions, and then I'll be out in Hampton that same evening at 7:30. Dan, in closing, A, thank you for your 12 years of dedication and commitment. And then B, this is your last chance to say something, anything, but then some last comments about the bond and levy too. So I'll just let you finish strong and close it out.
Well, I'll start with bond and levy. Your school buildings, when you walk into them, that really says a lot about the school district, and that thus says a lot about the community. And so you can see that as you go into other schools as well. You get an impression of what that community is like, what their priorities are. And so I definitely think that we need to vote yes on the bond, take care of our investment. We have great facilities, great schools. Let's not have a great facility with a garbage can collecting rainwater from the roof. I mean, let's take care of things and vote yes on that. Even more important is supporting the educational programs going on within those schools, and that's why they need to vote yes on the operating levy. One of the things that makes, 12 years ago when I ran for school board, I had kind of this vision that we'd be sort of like this western district in the east, right? And so, because they had these great test scores and everything, and we were going to do that. We have very good ACT scores and everything, so we are taking care of ourselves there. But I no longer want us to be this Western burb school in the East, because I feel like we've been a lot better. And we're better because we, you really get a broad exposure to different things coming to Hastings schools. I mean, we have, We emphasize academics, arts, athletics, but in addition to that, we have all sorts of industrial tech experiences. You know, you can take auto shop and take a class in an electrical class. There's different opportunities here that aren't everywhere. And I really do fear that if we don't pass the operating levies, that some of those things, hopefully they'll never be threatened. But I do think we're a unique district. We're very good. I wouldn't send my kids to any Western burb school over Hastings. And so I want to keep that. You know, so we want to preserve that by supporting our schools by voting yes on the operating levy. Then as far as, you know, anything I have to say as far as my final thoughts, I guess I want to thank everyone because, I mean, I felt really well supported being your representative on the school board for the last 12 years. You supported bonds and operating levies and things that without that support, I don't think I could have done as good of a job for you as I've done. And so I guess I'll end with a big thank you for your support, Hastings, and surrounding townships.
Thank you very much. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you, Dan, very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.